I'm joined today by a colleague, Rico Phillips, who is the Director of Cultural Diversity and Inclusion. Rico, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you for having me, Joel. This is a great opportunity to share some of the great things that we're doing here in the league.
Of course. And as we know, February is Black Heritage Month, and the OHL looks forward to celebrating the contributions of our Black players, coaches, and staff. Rico, how important is this month to you, and how important is it to the game of hockey?
Well, it's important to me for a number of reasons. Number one is a person of color like myself understands some of the struggles that have taken place in the sport of hockey. Me personally having some of those experiences, and certainly with my role, I've been exposed to many more of those experiences. Some negative, or a lot negative, but some positive as well. And so, what it means to me is an opportunity to showcase and put people in a different perspective of what a player is, who that player is as a person, as compared to just a player with the statistics and those things. And as we move forward, why it's important to our league is because we need to make sure that we showcase players from all walks of life, not just in this case, we're using Black Heritage Month as our example, but we want to make sure that we let our fans know and folks that are outside looking in who the people are that make up the OHL, from players all the way up to the top of the chain, being like board of governors and those types of people. So it's an exciting time for me because I finally get a chance to really share with the OHL some of the things that we do in respect to Black Heritage Month.
And I know on January 18th, you had the opportunity to travel to Boston to see the jersey retirement of Willie O'Ree. What was that experience like for you?
Well, the week started with an opportunity to participate in the Carnegie Initiative Summit. So I was there in Boston alongside other people that are just like me, trying to make an improvement in our sport when it comes to our cultural balance. So that part of it was the most enriching part. It's the thing that I'm going to bring home and share with the OHL. But it was capped by the opportunity to watch the jersey retirement of my hockey hero, Willie O'Ree. Willie O'Ree, for those of you that don't know, is he's the person who broke the color barrier in 1958 when he suited up for the Boston Bruins. It was quite emotional, probably from the standpoint of recognizing that Willie O'Ree, I know, never imagined a day like that coming. When I look into the rafters and seeing the other numbers, there's only 6 other numbers up there that were retired. And some of the folks don't recognize that Willie O'Ree's contributions were far greater off the ice and away from the ice than on the ice. Certainly, it was important that he was a trailblazer on the ice, but the things he's done for folks like me, who I'm the director of the Flint Inner City Youth Hockey Program, where we introduce the sport to kids. There's programs all across North America, and much of that has to do with Willie O'Ree. So it was an important moment in time. I was quite emotional myself, and the environment was incredible. I mean, everybody there was having a good time. So something I won't soon forget, I promise.
As we know, you were with the league last season, but things were really slow. There wasn't much action happening on the ice. Now that things have really started to pick up, what does your current role look like with the league?
Well, one of the things that we've been doing is trying to look at do some policy review, but my interaction with the players is a little bit different. One of the things I try to do now is I haven't moved around the league yet because there's still quite a few restrictions, but when teams come into Flint, where I'm based out of, I do my best to come to the games and go down and meet the players in person. I think that's very, very important to have a personal connection to the players, because what we want them to do is feel comfortable and as a person who they are, And so my interaction has become much more close base. We still have some distance between us because there's still, like I said, restrictions, but my goal in the future, hopefully next season, we'll have what we would call a normal season, and I could actually move around the landscape and go to different teams and cities and visit with them and connect them with the non-traditional or under-indexed fans that exist in each of our communities.
And what are some ways that the OHL has strived to be a more inclusive environment in the past year?
So one of the things that we've done is we've formed an equity, diversity, and inclusion committee. And this committee is made up of folks across the landscape of the OHL. And they're a very diverse group. We have women, we have former players, we have a member of the LGBTQ plus community. We have South Asian on our committee. And what that does is it's creating an opportunity for inclusion. So now we have different folks at different levels of the league able to sit down together and collectively talk about how we want to transform the culture. And they all have a voice. And that's what's really, really important to moving this forward, the needle forward when it comes to this. But other things, having opportunities to speak to the Board of Governors about some of the things that we want to do, and hoping that they understand that transformation and change starts at the top and goes down, especially when it comes to this. So I've had lots of opportunities to work with and speak with minor hockey associations about how we want to raise the bar and standards so that when players do make it to the OHL, they already have in place that some of the things that may have been tolerated in the past aren't tolerated in now and in the future. And I think the biggest thing is being able to speak with players and allowing them to open up and have dialogue about some of these tough topics.
On a more personal note, can you tell us what diversity, equity, and inclusion means to you and why it's so important to you?
Yes, certainly. Being a person of color who started in the sport quite late in my life, in the sense that I didn't play as a young child, but I started when I was in high school. I felt rather what it's like to be in an arena, so to speak, where I was the only person of color, and I never really let it bother me until others pointed it out. And then I found myself many times in my career trying to be the person who makes the first joke about being the only Black player in the room, or the only Black player refereeing, or Black person refereeing. And I realized that I was doing myself harm because I was normalizing bigotry. So what diversity and equity and inclusion means to me is so much more. It means I don't like to use the word change because people have a struggle with change, but I like to use the term transform. We have to transform the ideology behind diversity and inclusion. In other words, it isn't just about making the sport more accessible, because that's very, very important, making it accessible for all walks of life, but also creating environments where a person's race or difference, whatever makes them different, isn't what makes them stand out. What makes them stand out is their contribution to the team or their contributions as a person. And so I think for me, it's so important because what we say matters, gestures matter. And why does it matter? Because in many occasions, like what I experienced, is these things hurt you. They hurt into the soul. There's a part of you that, if you were to make a negative reference to my race, there's nothing I can do about my race, nothing you can do about your race. It is who we are. And when a person tries to attack who we are as a person, it hurts. And so that's what I'm trying to help foster, a better environment so less of these feelings get hurt, less of the feeling of exclusion are felt. And together, when we transform this in our sport, especially through the OHL, we'll be an example for the rest of society.
For society coming together, what's your biggest piece of advice for people to continue on that path of being more diverse and inclusive, not only in our sport, but in life in general?
I think the biggest thing is to be informed. There's a lot of folks that are probably watching right now, if they've watched long enough, to say, well, I'm done with the sensitivity and everybody being woke. Well, there's a reason that things are sensitive, in my opinion, right now. While we're all of a sudden, little things are starting to create ire, is because we're going through an evolution in time in our society, in my opinion. And what that means is we're having growing pains. All of a sudden, folks in different generations aren't sure how to cope with it, because people, for the first time in my lifetime, are willing to stand up and stand out against it. And it isn't just, in this case, if we're talking about Black people, it's people around Black people. And that's the biggest thing that I could ask for of anybody that's a person that isn't a person of color, is to be an advocate and an ally. Now, how do you do that? You educate yourself, not just on the history of Black people, but the culture and the heritage of Black people or people of color. We're using Black people in this case, but all people, so that you're not naive and ignorant to certain things. It makes you so that when you're in that position or in that space, you're not willing to understand and know more about a person. Maybe understand why there's a plight. Maybe understand why certain words are used as terms of endearment to a race of people, but is used as a damning word for other sections of our society. There's a lot that goes into all of this movement. And I think the biggest thing I can suggest to anybody is try to further educate yourself. And that may mean just talking to a person of color and learning more about their culture and sharing with them more about your culture. This is how we're going to do this. We're going to combine ourselves and not keep ourselves separate, in the sense of, well, those are of your culture, these are my culture, and you will keep them separate. We need to intertwine our cultures so that we can become one.
And on Black Heritage Month specifically, I know in the upcoming weeks, you'll be speaking with Black members of the OHL. What can other people from all different backgrounds do to also celebrate Black Heritage Month?
I think the biggest thing is to understand why there's a Black Heritage Month so that you can embrace it. There's so many people, Black people in particular, that have had struggles just making it in society, let alone in a sport like ice hockey. And that's, it has so many variables. Some of them have to do with the socioeconomic status that has to come with players of hockey, how it's so expensive, basically, is what I'm saying, and how that separates on those lines as well. We want to certainly hope that somehow we can create inclusion around that barrier. But I think for me, one of the most important things that people can do as they're experiencing Black Heritage Month is to understand that there's an appreciation that we should have for each other. And in this case, we're going to highlight Black player, a coach, a scout in the league, and we want you to take in their stories, because why we're coining this Black Heritage Month is because our history is important, but we have history in the making, and we want to share those people that are making history right around us, so you can appreciate that things are happening in a positive direction now, today, and these are the people that are helping making that happen.
Well, Rico, I look forward to hearing these conversations that you're going to have in the upcoming weeks, and I want to thank you again for your time in this interview today.
Oh, it was my pleasure, and I look forward to it. It's a moment where Rico Phillips will get to share with the OHL and the hockey world just how passionate I am for our league when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So, like I said, I'm really looking forward to this month.